Hello, it is Alex Lovehall, and welcome back to I'm Just Yapping. So, as a fighting game player, I'm sure you've seen the fighting games are bad products, videos going all around the internet. I know that you probably either read the article or seen the article. I've read the article myself, and I have plans on making videos and contents around what's said in that article on my own. However, I did want to just throw some, not all, of my opinions and responses to it, because I wanted to read the article and not watch somebody's video on it before I got an opinion. And honestly, I think it's a great introduction to the topic and the idea. However, I do not think that it has everything correct, and I don't think the community is necessarily ready to hear everything that it could do to improve itself. So in my opinion, if we're talking about fighting games as product design, I don't think they're bad products right now. I think they're diluted products. What I mean by that is, for example, I think the first thing that they do is it's the wrong way to casualize, and it's trading its soul for numbers and trading its soul for players. For example, if we look at Street Fighter 6 to Street Fighter 3, if we're looking at Street Fighter 3, that game was made specifically for hardcore gamers in mind. It has a specific design. It has the ability to be a game that has a lot of different options, and has a game that has a lot of different ways to play it, and it's a game that does not get patched, so it has time to grow and to change and to not stagnate as much, and it just has a lot of different options to it. We're not even talking about the presentation or anything like that. That comes later. Now, if you look at Street Fighter 6, that's a game that's constantly being updated, a game that's constantly being changed around, a game that's constantly having what the game can offer. It's not even technically finished yet because of DLC and live service. So, it's a game that if you're playing it now, this year's version is different than the version we have last year, which is different than the version we have last year, so on and so forth. Now, the thing that we don't talk about for Street Fighter 3 is that it's technically the third version of the Street Fighter 3 sub-series. So technically they've had two different patches or updates before we got the Third Strike. Third Strike is just the one that everybody talks about because it's the one that's the best of the three. It's the last one they made. Now, if we were to re-release Street Fighter 3 right now, like we did, let's say, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or Capcom vs. SNK 2, a lot of people wouldn't play it as much as they say they would, because the idea of playing a respected game is much more important to the community than actually playing that respected game. I can say the same thing for Tekken 5, Virtua Fighter 4, Samurai Showdown 2, Soul Calibur 1 or 2, Dead or Alive 2, Breaker's Revenge, the list goes on, Darkstalkers, right? So a lot of these games don't actually appeal to a casual audience anymore. They appeal to the casual mindset of, oh my god, this is so cool, I want to say I like it, or I want to be a part of the group that says this is important. Like people who say, if we're talking about superhero movies, oh man, I love reading the Iron Man Extremist book, but you're not gonna read any comic book, you're probably just gonna watch the movie. Or you're probably like, oh man, I heard that Demon in a Bottle is really good, but you're not gonna read Demon in a Bottle. And I'm using Iron Man specifically because he's the face of the MCU, which is the face of modern superhero media, which is the face of how superheroes are presented. But that's a whole different discussion, right? If we're just going off of basic psychology, a lot of people don't actually play these games, and these games are trying to change themselves and make themselves appeal to the player base because they assume that people don't understand or don't want to play. So in order to make themselves easier and appeal more easier and feel more easier, they're going to make all the options easier to manage, and they're going to make them easier to handle. So instead of an option having 6 options or 6 ways to use it and 7 ways to deal with it, an option might have 1 or 2 uses, and it's going to have one major way to deal with it, aka a DP used to be able to go through fireballs. Now a DP can only anti-air in the air unless it's EX, right? Something like that. Now, to move smoothly along, because I could literally talk about each one of these points for like a whole hour. Now, the second point is that the community is way too fragmented. Back on the Street Fighter 3 to Street Fighter 6, kind of what I was saying about earlier. Or let's use Tekken. So with Tekken, right, everybody says Tekken 8 sucks. Okay? People seem to forget that people at the end of Tekken 7 were saying the game is too defensive. They want new moves. They're tired of playing the same game for 20 years, and they want a new mechanic. Right? This was all said. People said backtaps are too strong. People said the tracking was too strong. People said that they're tired of seeing the same moves. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, so even if Tekken 8 wasn't the way that people wanted it to be, those complaints or those things that were mentioned is what people were asking for. So I don't like the discourse that people seem to forget what they are requesting. Then when it gets added in a way, it's not even saying this is bad, this is good. It's, I didn't even ask for this. That's the part that's confusing. And if this is not a Tekken 8 issue, this is a literal every popular fighting game, damn near every fighting game issue. Because again, everybody hated Dead or Alive for its core values, but a lot of people are valuing Marvel Rivals and Street Fighter 6 for the sexy swimsuit costumes or the super quote-unquote gooner costumes. It's like, so why did DOA have to be shunned for it? But now we like it when Street Fighter does it. Same with character customization or whatever else, right? The community doesn't actually either know what it likes, or they keep running away from the things that they lose to, not specifically what makes a game good or bad. Because technically City of the Wolves has a lot of things. That game is really good from a design standpoint and presentation standpoint, some other things as well, but no one's really playing it for the reasons that it's not Street Fighter, the Ronaldo controversy, the AI controversy, and the fact, like I said earlier, it's just an SNK game, and SNK games don't move because Capcom is the lifeblood of the FGC, and whatever Capcom does or says, that's usually how the community is going to move, whether it's developers, players, commentators, whatever, right? And just speaking of retro games, yet again, if people are like, yo, I want to start playing Tekken Tag 2, which by the way, I don't like how people who didn't experience that game or didn't, running from Tekken 8 to Tekken Tag 2 is not going to solve your problem, because what Tekken Tag 2 does is actually worse than what you would have to deal with in Tekken 8. And even if that wasn't the case, even if that wasn't true, because you got Tag Crush-Oak, you got every option can be beaten, you got characters being homogenized, whatever, you got very basic combo damage except for very few, whatever, there's more, then nobody's even playing the game or trying to play the game at a way to where there's enough of a community to even say that people are playing it. Because again, fighting games are never going to go, once the game is old, they're not going to get a big player base again currently in this modern age. I don't know why. I wish they did, but they don't. Like 600 people on Third Strike is good for Third Strike, and then you go look at Street Fighter 6, the numbers aren't even comparable, right? If I go on Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, numbers are kind of there, but not really, especially compared to when they were the new game. Absolutely not. So the community itself is way too divided between which games it wants to play, how it wants to play it, what platforms it is supported on, what are they even asking for. People are asking for certain things, don't remember. Some people don't do this, by the way. It's not every single person, but it's enough to where it's an issue that I've been seeing in a long time, and I am not exempt. I've definitely done some of these things before in my life to this day. Not as much as I used to, but I'm way more aware. Number 3 is the value proposition and opinions of fighting games are very hard-coded. So what that means is people assume that fighting games are so difficult and they're so hard to play and there's so much effort you got to put into playing it that they don't even want to try. Or I'm going to just be honest, subconsciously they don't want to put in the work and lose. So whatever reason they're going to say is what's going to happen. Because apparently a game like Deadlock, which I have a video coming out for that soon, apparently that game is so complex. It has MOBA stuff, it has movement stuff, it's got all this different mechanics and all this different complexities to it, which I would probably assume is harder than a fighting game. However, for some reason that is not viewed as being as difficult as playing a fighting game, because I think a lot of people don't actually understand what fighting games are, and they don't even really understand what fighting is. Because again, if you're actually in a boxing ring, nobody is really worrying about just the combos. You're not going to worry about just your 6 combination. You're not going to worry about 1 2 3 slip 4, right? You're not. That's an aspect, but there's a lot more that goes into it that's going to win you a fight, more than just what combo can you do, how hard is the combo, how many hits is the combo, can you break the combo. That's like a aspect, but it's not the only thing. And only a lot of people who don't know fighting games or don't care about fighting games, they just think, oh, I don't want to learn combos. Oh, I can't learn combos. I can't memorize combos. So they've already put that idea in their head that all fighting game is doing combos, and if I can't do that, or I don't want to do that, or I don't want to get hit by that, then it doesn't matter. And back to point number 1, if all fighting games want to do is make themselves look easier, and make combos easier to do or easier to break or easier to input or make the game easier to play or whatever, those people that don't want to play fighting games, you don't have a really good conversion rate. You don't have a good conversion rate of taking players who don't care and turning them into players that do care. So if you make the game super easy, super simple, super shallow, then all you're going to do is, realistically speaking, take away the people who did care about the game, and then you're going to be left with nobody, because the people who don't care, casuals, are going to bounce at some point anyway because they're not converted, and the people who did care are probably not going to like the product that you have if they don't like the simplicity, they don't like the version of what you're doing. So now you're kind of left with a middle of the road with nobody, and that's not even talking about live service. But that's not a fighting game issue. Live service is a gaming issue. So I'm going to keep it focused for now. I would also say that, well, one last thing about the value proposition is that a lot of people, they don't see a lot of other options besides just fighting other opponents, which admittedly I think that's the biggest thing, because I'm okay with just fighting the opponents, getting on ranked match or getting on training mode, but I'm in a different mindset now. However, I can't say that having more single player options or having more options to play the game is a bad thing, depending on how it's done. However, that one would that would require a different video altogether, right? I would say that making extra modes to help people learn how to play is good in theory, but it's not the actual match, because I could go into different mode and I can learn how to play in a different mode, but that does not necessarily translate directly. It can help, but does not directly translate into learning how to play the game in an actual setting. It's kind of like sparring in a gym is a aspect, but sparring in a gym is not going to translate to actually fighting somebody in an actual match, or God forbid on the street. It is a part, it can help, but it's not the whole. But anyway, the last and final thing, because this is running a little longer than I thought, is the characters. Characters sell fighting games, characters sell everything, okay? No one really cares about doing frame 1 hit confirms in Street Fighter 6 unless Ryu and Ken is on the screen. How do I know this? Because Ken and Chun-Li are in Fatal Fury City of the Wolves, and no one playing them in that game. However, people were so excited to see Ken and Chun-Li in the game. Oh my god, CS3 is here. Oh my god, look at the game. Look at how they look. Oh my gosh, look at how fun they look. Look at how the combos work, right? That's not the greatest example, but I would say that characters that people care about, doing things that people want to see them doing, is what is really going to make or break your roster, which is really what's going to make and break your sales. Because if you look at a game like 2XKO, which again is a game of I don't play League, I'm not a League player, you already know this, I don't really like 2XKO. However, they have like hundreds of characters to pull from, right? But you only have like 11, maybe. And most of them are from one source, which I believe is Arcane, which is what a lot of people would recognize the League characters from, because they don't play League, so it's kind of a similar boat. And then if we even look at a game like Dragon Ball FighterZ or Marvel vs. Capcom, I don't care what anybody in the comments is going to say, even though League of Legends is popular, what is her name? Jinx, Ari, those characters are not coming anywhere close to Goku, Spider-Man, Psylocke, Chun-Li, Storm, Wolverine, Android 18. They're not coming close. So if you even have a semblance of a good product, right, with the characters that people care about way more, then people are not going to stick to 2XKO, because wow, I could go play Marvel Tokon, which is literally everybody's losing their mind about the character roster. They don't even care about the gameplay as much. Why? Because the characters is what's going to get you in the door. The gameplay is what's going to keep you on the arcade machine or your console or whatever. The fact that I wouldn't have chosen Danger for Marvel Tokon, but they're trying to broaden their horizon of what characters speak to which player, because to be honest, Magic is a rising star, and she has gotten a lot of stock in the last year or so. And Marvel Rivals is a big reason why. But if I'm looking at a game like Tekken 8, if I'm looking like a game like Virtua Fighter 6, and I'm looking at a game like Dead or Alive 7, in the 3D space, Tekken has the most impactful, most important, and most iconic characters out of the whatever games, right? So if I'm just saying, yo, Kazuya, Kasumi, Siegfried, and Akira Yuki, most people will probably know who Kazuya is. Even if they don't know the name, they know who he is. more than the other three, so they'll probably play that game more. Or just characters really sell and they build a bond with the player and the audience, so then they want to connect themselves with that character no matter where they go, right? That's why people care so heavily about the Spider-Man movie, or they care so heavily about the Spider-Man game, or they care about how Spider-Man plays in Marvel Tokon, because it's Spider-Man. So I think that the face part and the function part matter. I think Combo Fiend was onto something, but he forgot the other part, which is functions are important, but who the function is and what they are matters just as much, if not a little more, especially if the face is from a different IP or a different media altogether. So with that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one. Again, this is me kind of putting in just a couple of my thoughts. I plan on going way more in depth in another video and many more videos in the future. It's just this article really was interesting to me, and it really kind of showed me that this is something that people should know, and I definitely can talk about this a lot more. So it was interesting to see everybody talk about it. I don't know what any of the other people said. I don't know what any of the other content creators were talking about, because I want to keep it to my opinion, and that's it. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed this next video. I hope you enjoyed this video. You didn't have to make it this far, but you did. I will turn pain into power, and you should too. You should live 1% today, 100% tomorrow. Live with style and substance, and I will see you in the next round.